In our last segment, we were talking about the 1920s, the Roaring Twenties, and how jazz had kind of really evolved as more of a popular art form, but it was happening with the gangsters and the speakeasies and all that kind of thing. So that's in terms of drummers playing jazz music. But just like today, here in the 21st century, drummers have a lot of different things that they can do. So a lot of us out here are what we call freelance drummers, and we maybe one day we're playing a show, and the next day we're playing a concert, and the next day we're doing a theater thing, and the next day we're playing in a club, and the next day we're playing for dancers. So there's a lot of different things that you could do, and drummers back then had the same sort of roles. They would take on many different roles. So we haven't really talked too much about this, but one of the really most important roles of a drummer in the 1920s was as what they call a Foley artist today, meaning a sound effects person. And you have to remember, this was back at a time period when you didn't have, you had radio at this point, but you didn't have TV, you certainly didn't have computers. And you had movies, but the movies were silent movies. The technology wasn't there yet to have a soundtrack go along with the movie. So when a movie would come to a theater, either they would have a piano player, or in some of the bigger cities, and as the 1920s progressed and things got more sophisticated, they would have an entire orchestra backing up a silent movie. And it fell to the drummer in the band, or drummers, sometimes there'd be several of them, to provide all the sound effects. So if there was a gunshot, if there was a plane flying overhead, if a baby was crying, if there was a cow mooing, or a bird chirping, or a train coming into the station, or horses galloping, or somebody shooting somebody, or somebody bending over and their pants ripping, well, the drummer was responsible for all of this. And this got to be pretty sophisticated. And you could see sheet music from the period, and there would be all kinds of cues for what instrument a drummer had to play. And so like today, drummers had to have pretty large setups in these theater circumstances. Or if it was a radio show, they were, somebody was listening, the drummer was providing all of this filler, this background sound effects to bring the radio production to life. So what you're about to see next is something that probably you're not going to see anywhere today. This is the one and only place to check this out. And it's a demonstration done by William F. Ludwig III, who is the grandson of the founder of the Ludwig Drum Company, the original William F. Ludwig. Now we already talked about in an earlier segment that William F. Ludwig and his brother were the ones that invented the bass drum pedal design that we still use today. And of course, we all know that they also created the Ludwig Drum Company. But prior to getting into that, William F. Ludwig was a champion rudimental drummer, and he toured all over the country and was one of the most important theater drummers in the Chicago area. So his grandson, William F. Ludwig III, has inherited all of his grandfather's traps and noisemakers, and he's going to do a demonstration for you right now of what it was like for a trap drummer, either in a silent movie or a stage show or a radio show back in the 1920s.
My grandfather and his brother, William F. Ludwig Sr. and Theobald Ludwig, started out the drum company by having an actual drum shop that they would do repairs and help people tune their drums and keep them operating properly. As time went on, people would come to them with certain needs and say, I need this sound, or I need this drum to do this, or this piece of equipment. And so they became inventors of sound effects, which we have here today. In those days, before sound, the drummers were behind the screen watching the movie and doing the various sound effects along with the movie to make it more entertaining for the audience. One of our items that we have is the Gunshot sound effect. And this actually holds .22 caliber blank shells. And then you close this down, have it on the table, and strike it with a hammer or a drumstick or whatever you have handy. The train effect is really interesting because it's so simple but effective, and then they even added this on as a separate item. You could get it with or without the bell, which I thought was pretty interesting. But this has a series of door springs inside. This looks like it was some kind of a file of some sort that they just saw it and picked it up and said, let's try that, and it worked. And that's the way he did most everything. That just slides in there, and then you go, if the train is just starting out, let's say. And you can increase the volume, speed, to really give the true effect of a train departing. And they also had to build items that could be transported, because these percussionists were going from theater to theater. It wasn't always the same theater. Different train whistle, a boat whistle. So in the movie script, we say the sheriff rode into town, and these are the horse's hoofs that create that sound effect. And also, we say that the sheriff, when he arrived in town, went by the blacksmith's shop where he was shoeing a horse. And then he goes by the schoolhouse and hears the bell tolling. Then also, as the script continues with the Clancy brothers getting off the train, when the train stops, a dog nervously barks in the distance. Might have been a little ill at the time, but nevertheless, it's a dog. And we also have another sound effect that I don't have with me that's a large version of this. It's about this big around, it's on the floor, and you pull the cloth up on that, and it's a lion roar. So it's the same concept, just a little deeper. This is just a hollow metal cylinder with a type of head on it, and you just slide a cloth over the string. Along those lines of the whistles, we also have the basic siren and duck call. Which has been around forever. But these are all the tools of the trade of the percussionist in the silent movie era. And this rather odd-looking item is a cuckoo clock. Which always comes in handy. And then, of course, the cricket sound.
So you may be asking yourself, when did movies with sound first start? Well, the first, what we call talkies, were released in about 1927. And although this was pretty cool, they put sound with film for the first time. By 1930, all movies pretty much were coming out had sound, and the silent movie era was pretty much over in a very short period of time. And the downside of that was that literally thousands, tens of thousands of drummers were put out of work overnight, drummers who had specialized in doing all these sound effects and Foley effects. And if you think about it, for those of us who remember back in the 1980s when drum machines first came in, it's a very similar kind of a thing. Everybody was panicked. Oh, this is it. The drummers are done, will be replaced by machines. That was kind of what was happening back around 1927. But as you can see, drummers didn't go away. And here we are in the 21st century. We're still around. We're still playing drums. We're still evolving with all the technological changes and musical changes that happen around us. So it's a good lesson to look back at your history and see that we've had to face these things before. New technology, what are we going to do? Boom, we go this way. So here we are. We're still here, baby. Who can tell me what made a drum set a drum set?
The low boy.
Kick pedal. Match grip.
The sock cymbal.
My name is Daniel Glass. I'm a drummer, author, and educator. In 1994, I joined a band called Royal Crown Revue. We were trying to figure out how to take the rebellious spirit of modern styles like punk and put it into big band and other roots music. We found out it was already there. I've been absorbed in this world ever since. I started researching the evolution of the drum set and the way that we play it. In the last dozen years, I've interviewed more than 60 different legendary drummers. I came to a startling conclusion. Perhaps more than any other instrument, the drum set is equipped to tell the story of America and American music.
All of these immigrants coming from around the world brought their technology. Jazz music and pop music were one and the same. You could dance to it.